The story I'm going to tell you is a simple one, a story of man versus machine, people against the corporation, and how music can be used to control us and also free us. This story is fully realized in the highly aesthetic cyberpunk tale of sound terrorism known as DECODER. DECODER is a 1984 West German movie and is a highly unique film with a huge crossover between certain underground artists and music scenes. The music itself stars people like F.M. Einheit, Christine F., Bill Rice, and features cameos from William Burroughs and Genesis P Orridge. It has parts filmed by Peter Sleazy Christopherson and a soundtrack done by Soft Cell, The, Einstürzende Neubauten, and others. The movie features total analog worship and is highly obsessed with ideals of the cut-up and sound terrorism that the famous beat poet William Burroughs had discussed in such works as The Job and Electronic Revolution. However, before I can discuss the story and give you all the exciting tidbits about the movie, I need to discuss the two main ideas and opposing forces within the film. First, we need to understand Muzak and what its purpose is, and we need to understand the technique of the cut-up and how it can be used to counteract music itself. Firstly, let's discuss a little about a genre of music known as Muzak, or some people know it as elevator music or even lounge music. To quote experimental visual artist Mika Tanila, who made the avant-garde documentary on Muzak, Thank You for the Music, he says, Muzak is a scientifically researched urban folk tradition with a schizophrenic function. It is supposed to be as unnoticeable and undramatic as possible. Yet, at the same time, it is meant to stimulate workers and shoppers. It is meant to be heard, but not listened to. The idea came originally from a general named George Owen Squire, who had been studying radio and electricity during World War I. Muzak's first incarnation was during the 1920s when Squire created Wired Radio Inc. and made a service where customers could charge extra on their phone bill to listen to music through the telephone. Eventually, when radio became more available and telephone music obsolete, the company became Muzak and decided to switch over to commercial clients instead. This is when Muzak first started selling its idea of stimulus progression. In very basic terms, stimulus progression was the belief that this certain kind of music, played in 15-minute blocks with 15 minutes of silence, could make workers work faster, as well as be more calm in the workplace, as well as using certain tunes throughout shopping malls and grocery stores to provoke consumers to buy more products. It was the idea of brainwashing. Buy the product, eat the chemical glop, all while staying fast, efficient, and calm. The company had received some lawsuits due to their devious practices, but they had technically not broken any laws. Muzak went bankrupt in 2009 and was bought by Mood Media in 2011. Muzak's legacy can still be felt today with commercial music, YouTube free-to-use music, and its basic idea still stands: music as a form of social control. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, and opposing the idea of music as a form of social control, let's talk about the technique known as the cut-up method. The cut-up was first dreamed up from experimental visual beat artist Brian Geisen, along with his very close friend William Burroughs. Geisen was very ahead of his time in art, being heavily influenced by calligraphy, and shared many of the same political and radical ideas that Burroughs held, such as the idea that the written language, that words were a virus, and that with the cut-up, one was freed from the virus. In the summer of 1959, Geisen was experimenting with cutting up pieces of text and rearranging them in columns, and realized that this offered a new way of having the text have a new meaning while keeping the essential linguistic character. The non-linear text was thought to help free oneself from the word virus, and soon Geisen and Burroughs used the same technique on tape recordings, photography, and film. Genesis P Orridge can be quoted saying on the cut-up, "Everything is recorded. If it is recorded, then it can be edited. If it can be edited, the order, sense, meaning, and direction are as arbitrary and personal as the agenda or person editing." The main idea and use of the cut-up was to use the very tools of the corporation against them. by recording, cutting up, and distorting its message. Co-director and scriptwriter Klaus Make has discussed in interviews how at the time he felt the idea of only using leaflets and magazines to spread information was boring and ineffective to agitate many people. He was convinced that the only valuable political work must use the enemy's technique. This ideal falls perfectly in line with the cut-up, which makes sense since DECODER was mainly influenced by Burroughs to the point that Klaus had wanted and found an opportunity to have Burroughs himself appear in the film. In DECODER, our protagonist uses the cut-up method to disrupt the enemy's flow of information and stop their control. This is the opposing force of Muzak in using music as a weapon of liberation. DECODER is a big crossover between different like-minded artists and underground music scenes and has many influences from movies and books. One of the main influences on the aesthetics of DECODER come from the cinematography work on a no-wave film called Subway Riders. The film is a somewhat neo-noir style movie directed by well-known no-wave director Amos Poe and loosely tells the story of a New York saxophone player who lures his victims in with music, then shoots them. The gritty but beautiful and colorful gel shots were done by photographer Johanna Heer, and Klaus and Musha liked it so much that they wanted it for DECODER and hired her as the cinematographer. That's where the film gets its iconic, almost hypnotic looking deep gel lighted scenes where every character is bathed in a certain color. Subway Riders also starred a popular no-wave New York actor named Bill Rice, and the crew loved how he looked and knew that he would be perfect fit for the character Jaeger in DECODER and flew him out as well. That's the film's connection to the New York scene. DECODER had 4 central writers for the script. The story was first written by Klaus Make in 1981. Klaus is known for his movies like The Edge of Heaven, Soul Kitchen, and the amazing documentary B-movie Lust and Sound in West Berlin. Originally, the movie was called Burger Krieg or Burger War. The title was a play on words since Burger sounds a lot like the German word for citizen. At the time, Klaus was living in a commune of sorts with Einstürzende Neubauten's percussionist FM Einheit, who we recalled lived in the basement and was always tinkering with music, equipment, and tape recorders. He also lived with a woman named Christine F., who became famous when her story of childhood struggles with drugs and prostitution sold the story to become a biography, as well as a movie, Christine F., that featured music by David Bowie. Klaus knew he wanted FM Einheit specifically to be the main character of DECODER and essentially wrote the script around him. He was inspired by FM's music work with Neubauten and was already well versed in the idea of the cut-up, just like the main character needed to be, so it was a perfect match. After the first draft of the script, it was shown to fellow artists and directors Trini Trimpop and Musha. Trini Trimpop was part of the German punk band Die Toten Hosen and worked with Musha already on an experimental film called Humans Toten. Musha was also soon to become DECODER's official director, and he was also in music. His real name was Jürgen Muschlek, or Musha for short, and he had the music groups Charlie's Girls and 13. They both helped work on the script, along with the last member, Volker Schaefer, who has done art direction on films like Amelia and Vision, but is mostly known for helping to write and produce DECODER. The movie had a low budget and was slowly worked on whenever they would receive funds. It took almost a year to edit, and the soundtrack was supposedly done for free, with work from Dave Ball of Soft Cell itself, Genesis P Orridge and Psychic TV, and FM Einheit and Einstürzende Neubauten. Einstürzende Neubauten is a West Berlin industrial band who is well known for using real scrap metal sounds and homemade instruments. Genesis P Orridge was one of the founders of the first industrial groups, Throb and Gristle, as well as founding the Temple of Psychic Youth, as well as the band Psychic TV. Between these artists and ideals and aesthetic presented in the movie, this is its industrial connection. So what is the basic story of DECODER? Like I mentioned, it's a simple story of man versus corporation, music as a form of control versus music as a form of liberation. The story is also loosely based on experience that William Burroughs had, where he claims that he disliked a coffee shop so much that he recorded all the music and sounds inside and then kept playing it back at the restaurant to harass them, and supposedly this made the business lose a lot of clients in business because of the sounds. The story of Decoder goes that we have our big bad fast food conglomerate, H Burger, where the H stands for heroin. That seems to be secretly controlling the consumers to rapidly eat their products by using tapes containing Muzak to play in the restaurant. FM Einheit's character, FM, realizes this and soon makes tapes that take these Muzak recordings and cuts them up and splices them with industrial sounds and screams of the frogs from his girlfriend. He passes the tapes out to others to play at all kinds of fast food chains. This in turn causes everyone to be free of the control and get sick from realizing what they are really eating, and more people bring more of these tapes to different chains, and soon riots ensue in the streets. Meanwhile, H. Burger's private hitman, hunter, it's never quite clear, Jaeger, is supposed to be getting rid of FM from the beginning, but instead he has become obsessed with the woman who he has seen at the red light district that is also FM's girlfriend. That's a very basic synopsis of the plot, but let's get into some fun details about the film itself. When FM realizes the true nature of Muzak being played in the restaurant, he goes out to seek more recordings for his cut-up tape, and he ends up at an abandoned factory where there are a bunch of vagrants banging on pipes and the walls and making bonfires inside. He is caught and brought before the high priest, who is played by Genesis P Orridge. The priest discusses with him the power of information and likens it to a bank, and that their duty is to rob that bank. They also make him look into the Dream Machine, which is another nod to Brian Geisen and William Burroughs. The Dream Machine was an invention by Geisen, who was convinced that the flicker produced by the machine on people who were looking at it with their eyes closed could produce a non-drug high and hallucinogenic vision, and perhaps open the mind to another world and free oneself. An interesting documentary called Flicker goes into depth with this story, and Geisen, definitely check it out for more on the topic, and it also features Genesis P Orridge as well. The next interesting thing is FM's surreal and lucid meeting with William Burroughs in the film, which is implied to be a dream. Klaus heard Burroughs was going to be around for a psychic TV event, so he made sure to go and convince him to come and make a scene for Decoder. He agreed, granted them about an hour to film the scene, and the scene was filmed at a real electronic repair store. Supposedly Burroughs was drunk at the time and had a hard time reciting lines, so they just gave him a tape deck to disassemble. This scene in particular was filmed by Peter Sleazy Christopherson, who was also a founding member of Throbbing Gristle, as well as a member early on of the Psychic Youth. He's most well known for the amazing electronic duo Coil, along with his partner John Balance. He also is the one that made the fake snuff film clips that are shown at the Peep Show within the film. The clips themselves are speculated that they could also be from the very infamous Psychic TV first transmission video. Someone else was also found to be secretly filming this meeting that no one on the set at first had recognized. It turned out that the secret recorder turned out to be cult director Derek Jarman, who was recording this FM and Burroughs meeting for his own Super 8 film called The Pirate Tape. This footage is also set to Psychic TV music and can now be seen on the special feature sections of the Vinegar Syndrome release of the Decoder DVD. Sleazy also knew the frog wrangler that they had working with them on the set for Christina's Frogs. Christina is the girlfriend character of FM, even though their relationship seems odd and restrained. An interesting scene happens in which the couple is seen talking to each other on the phone, only to find out that they are in fact in the same room, with her complaining that FM sounded better in her ear. When asked about the meaning of this particular scene, Klaus said he felt uncomfortable giving specific meaning. It could be interpreted as the pervasive intrusion technology has on our interactions, or it could be Christina's lack of desire for true intimacy. This makes the final scene even more stronger when the lovers are reunited through the chaos of all the riots and hold in a tight embrace until the movie fades out. Christina's character is definitely based on Christine in real life, living her double life, one, as a peep show worker, and two, living her quiet life alone with her frogs, wanting to be left alone. Christine said in real life that she had come to Berlin to escape her fame and just escape from everything, to be free of drugs and repair her life. Finally, the riot footage in the film is real. While filming the movie, the crew knew that Ronald Reagan would be in Berlin and that riots were very likely. The crew had set up 2 cameras safely hidden on balconies and had 3 more cameras within the riot while it was happening. Not only had they anticipated the riots, they wanted to help exacerbate them by using the Burroughs method of sound terrorism in real life. The idea was that by playing sounds of riots, you could in fact start a real riot itself. Supposedly, they weren't the only ones with this idea, and apparently, by 11 a.m., there were sounds from all kinds of handmade tapes being played outside windows and within Walkmans, and many of these tapes contained sounds of punk bands, Jimi Hendrix, planes, and gun sounds all over, and it helped to provoke the police, and a huge riot ensued. The riot footage contains actors among real-life people in the very real riot. Klaus has also said that he's a bit disappointed that some parts look like archival footage due to all the different varying qualities of all the cameras. Decoder is a unique experience I promise you won't have with any other film. I don't think there is any other movie that really shows the idea of Burroughs and sound terrorism as much as Decoder. This film was nearly forgotten and was impossible to find in any good quality that respects the original work. Finally, in 2019, with the absolutely amazing reissue on Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome, this movie is almost borderline hypnotic with the colors and the angles. I really recommend only seeing Decoder in this form. It's well worth getting. The special features are amazing too, and the commentary by R.I.P Genesis is what has helped me with making this video. Her information and insight into this film is absolutely entertaining and insightful, and what a great feature to have on the DVD. I would definitely check it out to go even more in depth with the film and all the people working on the film. As I said, the pirate tapes from Derek Jarman are also on here as a feature, as well as a few interviews by Klaus Mayek. Guys, all I have to say is just watch Decoder, especially if you like any of this junk that I've talked about.
Information is like a bank. Some of us are rich. Some of us are poor with information. All of us can be rich. Our job, your job, is to rob the bank, to kill the guards, to go out there to destroy everybody who keeps and hides the whole